Happy Friday. Welcome back to yet another Winked Unplugged. And today we're going to talk about something that is plaguing our entire generation. It's this ability to actually connect authentically. And you know what triggered it for me was I think it was Wednesday. I've been having some issues with my left shoulder as I was doing some yoga last year, which I should not have been doing. And I was trying stunts, which again, you got to do it carefully. If you're doing something new, be very careful and not pull stuff. So I pulled my shoulder. And I was like, you know what, it'll heal itself. It's not the first time I've done it. And over a period of time, it became progressively worse. To the point where I was like even scared to lift a lot of heavy things with my right hand, and it's my predominant hand. So I went to see my chiropractor and my acupuncturist, and they did something, didn't quite help, and ultimately I landed up with this person who's been working on me on a bit, and she's a magician. And of course my arm's much better. And as we were having a conversation that she was working me on Wednesday, I just asked her, I'm like, how's your week been? And because the last week had been very stressful for her. And she said, I had the most wonderful, she said it was the most delightful day she'd had in 2 years. And it piqued my interest. I'm like, delightful is such a beautiful word, and delightful day in the last 2 years. Tell me about it. And she said she talked about how, long story short, couple of things that made it super delightful for her. And she talked about how she was running an errand, ran into a very good friend of hers that she had not seen in a while. And then more importantly, she realized her friend, who she met after a long time, knew a person, he's a homeless person, who is on 72nd Street on New York City on the west side. And normally when you think of people who are homeless, you kind of think, you kind of not even look at them, you don't acknowledge them, you don't want to talk to them, and you think something might be off, right? We have our preconceived notions. And this person had been on absolutely normal, actually quite in tune, and he was like the mayor of the square, and he would see everybody go by, and he had just observed a crime that had happened, and he was really upset because the police had not moved fast enough to catch the person. And he literally, because he was there, he knew who the person was, and he gave the description to the police, and so the police could catch him. But she talked about that interaction where he saw people for who they really were. Right? That's what he does. He kind of watches people go back and forth, looks at what is happening around him. He's like completely tuned in to what is happening with people around. And there is so much kindness and depth to this person. And she was just amazed. She's like, on a normal day, I would not even stop and talk to him. And not that he might talk to me, but because he knew my friend, we got into a conversation. And she's like, Ruchika, this was one of the most aware, even borderline enlightened person that I've spoken to. There was just so much depth and wisdom in his observation and the way he was approaching life. And he's a homeless person. And then she went on to talk about how she went to Trader Joe's after that, and it was her first time in Trader Joe's after 2 years. And she had an amazing connection with the cashier behind, and both of them had a beautiful connection. They were chatting about things, connecting at a level, even though it was for a minute. And she said, I walked out of Trader Joe's so happy and so uplifted. And she said it was one of the beautiful moments that makes New York what it is. But it's not just New York. It's those beautiful moments that make life what they are. Authentic connections. And they need not be like long connections. They're not like you're sitting and having long conversations with people. It is in that moment you're very present. You're willing to just connect and understand what's happening with the other person and share a little bit about yourself. And what I've seen is our generation being as distracted as it is, we are so in our own head, either thinking about where we want to go, what just happened in an interaction, or on our phones, that we are truly not even aware of what's happening around us. It's a little bit like we're sleepwalking through life, and we're not really seeing people in front of us. And she and me got into this conversation, and I was telling her how COVID has actually changed a few things. I remember going into stores, and even my morning coffee, if I went to different places, of course, if I went to the same place, I knew the person, I would have a conversation. But it becomes very transactional. You go in and you say, hey, I want to have this kind of coffee, you're half on your phone, you're talking to somebody else, you're completely distracted. It is a transaction. And yes, it is a transaction. But what we don't realize is the coffee is the transaction. The person behind the counter is not. The person behind the counter is not the object of your purchase. The person behind the counter is a human being. And it's really important that for those few seconds, we recognize that we are interacting with another human being, not a machine, not a robot, not a computer, not a kiosk. And it is incredible how we've come to this point where we actually treat the other person like an emotionless, lifeless, personality-less person, and they're not. They don't feel, if you were on the other side, how would we want to be treated? Would you want to be seen? We actually behave as if they are not even people. It is important that in those minutes or few seconds, we take the moment to acknowledge, to see the person, literally see, not just like look. It's important that we do that. And it might seem like a lot of work that, oh my God, in every interaction I need to be present. When I'm getting a coffee, I need to have an interaction. When I'm with my Uber driver, I need to have an interaction. It doesn't take time and it's not effort. I promise you, those interactions are far more uplifting. Children do this all the time. Children are very aware. And I'll share another story. A few months back, Aniket, my husband, and myself, we were walking on the Upper West Side with some friends, and we were, having a good time. We were chatting, and in that there was a little bit of a hole, and Aniket didn't see it, and he tripped. And all of us for a second were like, oh my God, what happened? Nothing really big. It was just that he tripped. And he sat down to ensure that he did not put pressure on his ankle, which is the best thing to do. I went to the restaurant that we were at and got some ice. And in all of that, I noticed that there was a little kid, not more than 2.5 years old, and he was with his father. And the father was pulling him along. And this kid refused to leave. He was maybe 20 meters from where Aniket was, and he saw Aniket fall. And his father's like, let's go home, and he refuses to leave because he saw what happened to Aniket and he wanted to ensure that Aniket was okay. He literally wanted to come over and talk and see if he was okay. We all have that as children. When we see something happen, we want to pause, we want to check in, we want to see. We have that instinctively. But a lot of times we don't even see because we're in our own heads. We're not seeing, we're like walking with blinders on, not seeing what's happening around us. Not seeing whether the person in front of us is in so much need, in so much pain, that all they need is an acknowledgement from somebody that they're there, that they're seen, that they're heard, that they are human. Isn't that what all of us want? We just want to be acknowledged that we are present and somebody sees us. If we want that, are we willing to give it to other people? It's fascinating for me. So now every time I call up 1-800 for something, it might be something is broken, my cell phone issues, internet issues, whatever that might be, or a bank. I call up and they'll be like, hello, I'm so-and-so. And I'll be like, hello, I'm Ruchika. How are you doing today? And try this as a social experiment. It has been a few years that I've been doing it. And without fail, 99% of the time, I hear a pause on the other side. And they're like, oh, I'm doing really well. And you can literally see that they have moved from their monotonous, hi, I'm so-and-so, how can I help you, to, oh, I'm interacting with another person. And that conversation goes very differently by just that 1 second of acknowledging the person and saying, how are you? How's summer going? Is your family doing okay through COVID? Are you working from home these days? How's all of that? Just a few seconds to check in with other people. And you will be surprised how expanded and energized you walk away from those interactions, even though they're a few seconds. Because connection is an essential need for all of us. We need it as much as we need food and shelter and clothing. Without that, we get into anxiety, depression, worrying. Connection is what keeps the juice of life alive. So can we make it like, it's a muscle memory. Can we make it a muscle memory where we, for a few moments at least, we start with that. Keep the phone aside as you're walking on the streets. Just look at people and sometimes just smile. And you'll be surprised at how sweetly people respond back to you. And just talk to that shopkeeper, talk to the person behind the counter, just check in with them. we've made life, of course, we're distracted. That is one reason why we don't do this. The second is we also become very transactional. We don't realize that connection is an end in itself. We size up and say, hey, I'm willing to connect with somebody who's a little bit higher than me. I can get something from them. We will not behave the same way with a person who we think is important, or think a person who can give something to us. We're very present to them because we want to get something from them. We're constantly sizing and saying, what can I get? You know, a person behind a counter, you don't think you can get much from. You've already sized up in your head. It's okay to be distracted. It's okay to be transactional. But somebody else, maybe not. And again, are you going through life as transacting everywhere, constantly sizing up to see what can you get from other people? Even if it is emotional support, what can I get? Rather than how can I connect? How can we make this a expansive experience? So again, no judgment, just evaluate. How are you going through life? Are you going through life constantly either distracted, not even seeing, literally sleepwalking through life? You know, often as a kid, I would wonder how alert and awake I was. I'd be like, oh, if there was an accident that happened on the way, or if there was a robbery that happened on my way, would I be able to describe the car or the person and the clothing? And I can promise you most of us would not, because we are not even aware. So one is distraction. Can you pause the distraction? Because it's the distraction that's tiring you, not the connection. And the second one is, are you going through life sizing and constantly looking at what can I get, rather than how can I make this a connection which is going to be uplifting from there for the person in front and also for yourself. So I'm just going to pause over there and see if there are any thoughts or questions or whatever else that people have right now. Any thoughts about how you are going through life? Are you taking the time to connect? Or are you in like go mode? Let me figure this out, figure that out. It happens a lot in meetings too. You know, we think we've got to accomplish all of this in a meeting. You come in and literally you're like, okay, we talked about this last time. Where are we on it? No, pause. They're human beings on the other side. Talk to them like they are human beings, not just people who can drive some accomplishment or some goal for you or for the team. And I see moms here. Hey, Cindy, it's good to see you here too. I see a few other people. Any thoughts, any questions, any comments? How has your experience been when you connect and when you don't connect? Okay, so if there isn't any thought or comment or sharing, then just a little bit of awareness for the next 1 week. Just pause, get done with the distractions. It's not worth it. That is what tires us. Be present this moment. This is the only moment that we have. You might think you have a future and you think you had a past. They're all gone. The only thing that you have is in this moment. So can you truly live this moment? Be present, be aware, see, acknowledge, and don't do business in life, right? We've taken the business mindset even in our relationships and our connections. Drop it. Just know connecting itself is an end, and that itself is uplifting, and that is the juice of life. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to see you again next week. Till then, ciao, and keep adulting joyfully. Bye.